if I stop for a moment, artificial intelligence doesn't work if you don't have good data. And to have good data, you have to have a good ERP system.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process. Welcome to the next episode of Process Pioneers. My name is Daniel Rayner. I'm the host of Process Pioneers, and in each of these episodes, I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with different specialists and professionals that have something to do with business process management in their organization. That could be through an academic lens, it could be through a consulting lens, it could be through an internal consulting lens, someone that's working internally at an organization and helping to transform their processes. And if any of you are from the world of business process management, you understand that it's a very diverse and broad topic, and processes touch every area of our organizations. Today, I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with Eduardo Chávez. Now, Eduardo is a management consultant based in the USA. He helps mid to large multinational corporations to strategize and execute finance transformations in particular. So many processes in all areas of the business, of the organization. Eduardo focuses on financial transformation. He does this relying on BPM, best practices, redesigning organizations and technology. And prior to consulting, he ran international finance organizations with operations in 30 countries and $4 billion in sales. Very excited for this conversation. Eduardo, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for your invitation. I look forward to having an interesting conversation with you today.
I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating conversation. And 30 organizations in 30 countries and in $4 billion worth of sales. That's no small operation right there. Can you take us back to the beginning of your journey in business process management, when you first maybe stumbled across the concept, or maybe you were formally trained in it, and then take us on a bit of a journey leading up to what you're doing today?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for your question. Actually, the short answer is that I've been exposed to process management since the beginning of my career. I would say that my career is broken down into 3 stages. The first one, the first stage, was in public accounting. I used to work for a large public accounting firm, and when you do an audit of a company and you're going to pass an opinion on the accuracy of financial statements, one of the things you have to do as an external auditor is to analyze the processes of a company. A company traditionally has operational controls, and there are other type of processes or controls that are in place to ensure that the financial statements are accurate. So since that part of my career, I had to understand very well how companies were organized from a process point of view. When I moved into controllership roles in the US, that was also an important part of what I had to do on a daily basis. When you run operations for large multinational companies, especially in the financial area, obviously you need good accountants, people with a strong knowledge about taxes, legal implications. But there are operational activities like closing the books every month for either a small or large company, and even now, the closing process for many corporations is very complicated. And very often, the root cause of the problem is that processes are not operating as they should. So that's this. During the second stage of my career, this is an example of how processes were an important part of the equation. When you are transforming a finance organization, especially for a multinational company, the first stage in that process of transformation is to simplify the process across the different countries that you are responsible for. Then the next stage is to standardize processes. And third, if you still had different systems around the world, one of the logical steps at that point is to implement an ERP solution so that you have a unique backbone around the world. Now, moving on to the third phase of my career, leveraging of that previous experience as an external auditor and also running finance operations, I work nowadays helping finance organizations, also of primarily multinational companies, to improve how they run finance. All CFOs, VP of finances are thinking every day, how can I do more with less? In order to make that happen, the first thing that I bring to the table is to talk about their processes. What are the opportunities to remove non-value added processes and also technology? So that's what I can tell you in a nutshell. My story with BPM throughout my career.
That's fantastic. Thanks for that, Eduardo. And across all of the different organizations you work with, I'm assuming it covers a range of different industries and sectors. Do you find that there are some best practice financial processes that every industry can adopt, or does it change depending on the organization, their target market, the area that they're servicing?
Yeah, I would say that it has to be broken down by industry, because each industry is unique, and finance has to be customized to what the industry is. If you are, let's say, selling to a business to consumer model, generally speaking, the finance process are more complicated. The way you bill, collect millions of thousands of invoices makes the process more complicated. But on the other side of the spectrum, if you are selling, let's say, airplanes, the process is simpler. I mean, an airplane has a lot of technology, but each piece costs millions of dollars. So it depends on the industry. That would be my short answer to your question.
Yeah, great. And you were saying before there, you're listing off a number of, I guess, key motivators for an organization to want to transform their finances. You were saying that they may be audited, they may be inefficient processes, they may want to simplify and standardize their processes in multiple regions throughout the world. What would you say is one of the biggest drivers for an organization to want to transform their processes? Do you find that it generally happens when they are getting audited and it's more out of a panic or a reaction, or do you find that it's more out of a proactive approach wanting to optimize their processes?
I would say it's a business need. I mean, because everybody knows that nowadays things change very fast. In the past, finance were looked more as the team who was producing information so that somebody else in the organization was reading that information. Nowadays, a best-in-class finance organization has to be seen as a business partner for the rest of the organization, not just producing information about what happened but also being able to look at or being able to anticipate what might happen in terms of sales, expenses, because if the CFO is not able to have a good sense of what could happen in the future, that can create a lot of problems. And the other thing, just beginning on my question, on my explanation, in the past, many finance organizations, let's say, used to spend 60-70% of their time doing clerical work, activities that were very routine, and just 30% adding value to the business. What CFOs now they want to do is to invert the pyramid. Spend just 30% doing routine activities and 70% actually adding value to the business. And that's why many large organizations, also medium-sized organizations, are thinking about automation, ERP systems, because that's the best enabler to accomplish this goal.
Yeah, okay, right. And what would you say some of the biggest challenges are in achieving that goal?
There are a couple of possible options. One that I still see out there is that some people believe that implementing a good ERP system will automatically resolve their processes challenges. This is not, in my opinion, the right approach. What I traditionally suggests is that if you really want to change your finance processes, you have to start first applying BPN first to optimize your processes. Once they are optimized and running well, that's the moment when you are in a good position to move into an ERP system. And the other thing that I think is important for your audience to learn is that even when you have an ERP system, it doesn't mean that you have just to take that system as is. I believe it makes sense if you want to be different in the marketplace. It makes sense to customize it in certain areas so that you can provide a unique solution that your competitors cannot copy easily. Otherwise, if you implement an ERP system without any changes, your competition can do it, can implement the system, and nobody is winning.
Yes. Okay. Right. And if someone's listening to this right now and they understand or they agree with you, they resonate with this idea of, getting your processes in an order where they can be, financial processes can be easily understood and managed and presented for audits and optimized and efficiencies gained through that process. What's step one for an organization that maybe is yet to start out on that journey of optimizing their processes, or maybe they already have started, but they're still in a bit of a mess. Maybe they're in paper-based documents. Where do you begin when you step foot into an organization and they're saying, Eduardo, we really need a huge overhaul. We really need a huge transformation in this area. What's step one for us?
Step one traditionally is to do what is called this assessment stage. During this stage, there are a couple of options. One is to do a benchmark analysis, so that in that case you compare your finance organization against other organizations within the industry. That exercise automatically gives you a gap. It can tell you that you are spending too much money. You have too many people for a given process. So that's the baseline. So you know exactly that there is a gap. Once you establish the gap, the next stage is to start analyzing what are the key factors that are causing that gap. And the third stage in this exercise is once you understand the gap and you can also pinpoint what are the root causes, is when you have to put together a roadmap where you list all the priorities or all the initiatives that you have to execute in order to address the gap that is established at the beginning of this exercise.
And are you talking about looking at all processes within the financial area, or are you talking about identifying core processes and just starting with one or two or three?
Traditionally, we start with two. One is called order to cash, or the other organizations call it a quote to cash, and the other process is a source to pay. The reason why they are so important is because order to cash is where the money is coming from, and source to pay, that's where the money is going out. So those are, I would say, very important processes that take more attention when you are trying to transform a finance organization.
Right. And in terms of the different organizations you've worked with and the transformations that you've participated in, what are some of the biggest wins that you've experienced or seen by putting effective process management into practice? Because I think that's a very powerful thing for our audience to hear is financial processes transformed and significant value delivered to an organization, because there are quite a few people out there at the moment that have this perception that process management doesn't deliver real tangible results to the organization, to the business, and that's due to a number of different things, whether it wasn't implemented effectively. Maybe they tried to boil the ocean. They embarked on a 3-year mapping exercise and they never actually got to the end of it. But what are some of the biggest wins that you've participated in?
I have several examples that I have in mind. One was a multinational movie production company, and the other one is a pharmaceutical company. Both are large organizations. In both instances, they were able to reduce overhead up to 30%. Not necessarily 30% exactly, but in different. If you add up the different different processes that were transformed, they were able to reduce this amount of money. One, because they standardized their processes, they were simpler. Also, technology, they move away from a number of legacy systems and install just one that would be used all over the world. And also, when organizational changes are made, that also contribute to this to the savings I am quoting at the moment. Many corporations have embarked on an initiative that is called Global Business Services. What this initiative involves is to move routine, low-value activities to low-cost countries that automatically give you a lot of significant savings to the company. So that's the way I've seen companies improve performance. And also, while looking at the processes, we found in many instances that roughly 50-60% of what was done was actually not needed. So just by eliminating unnecessary waste, they were able to do things faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, okay. That's amazing. And when trying to get buy-in from the CFOs or the ones that are hold the purse strings, so to speak, for this type of transformation, is it an easy thing? Does the CFO have needed to been on a similar transformation beforehand, maybe at a prior organisation, or is it pretty? Is it a pretty easy pitch? Because again, we've got a lot of people that listen to this series that they might be working in an organisation where they're still struggling to get the buy-in from senior leaders, from the C-level executives, because of a whole range of reasons. But when looking at specifically financial transformation, how do you pitch that to senior leaders?
I would say that when there is business pain, everybody listens. If the organization knows that they are lagging behind, that they are not, their finance is not a best-in-class company, and they are a best-in-class organization, generally speaking, executives are willing to listen. Obviously, they're not gonna jump immediately into the idea. And what I find fascinating is that this is a learning process for some of them. When we finish the assessment stage that I was mentioning before, and they see the gaps in the different processes, and they start to realize what the opportunities are, is when they get more excited, and they want more information. They want to know, okay, all right, so this is what I can achieve. The next question is, how much it's going to cost me, how long it will take, and the other question that is very, very frequent, will this disrupt my day-to-day operations? And if we can present a story that is compelling, and also present business cases of similar companies that have gone through a similar transformation, my experience is that companies or executives are willing to embark on this type of transformations.
And if there are objections, what sort of objections tend to come up?
Especially when with the transformation involve significant changes in the technology, there is some apprehension because many companies still have complex systems, and they need to be reassured that just because we want to improve things, we are not going to create a disruption that can affect, as I said before, the day-to-day operations. There are cases of companies where they didn't plan these type of changes intelligently, and they have experienced problems. So that's why I would say technology is the area where they need more assurance before they provide the green light.
Yeah, okay. And when adopting a business process management approach and embarking on this journey, is it mainly about getting buy-in from the senior leaders? Are there other stakeholders that need to be brought into the conversation? I'm thinking of your frontline users, your process participants, your process performers. Obviously, if we're coming in there and making significant changes to people that have been doing work for the last 5, 10, 15 years, does that present a hurdle or an obstacle? Which other sort of stakeholders do we need to make sure that we're aware of when embarking on this type of transformation?
I mean, any exercise that involves change obviously creates some reaction in the organization. And one of the best practices is to have good change management all along. And changes are effective. I would say there are even common suggested practices. Change are successful when a senior leadership is on board with the change. They sponsor it all along. When the project is discussed with all the stakeholders, included employees, and they feel that they are part of the change by explaining how things will be better once the transformation is completed. In my experience, people are supportive for the change.
That's good. That's good. Because I know that there are, plenty of examples or stories where a change has been brought to the table, brought to the conversation, and if the right people aren't brought along that journey, they can provide a resistance or objection to that. Because especially if we come in as process specialists or professionals, but we're not the ones that know that role intimately. There are people that are doing that work day in and day out that know the role, that know the activities, that know where the weak areas are, and probably have some fantastic ideas to solutions to those problems. And if we're not creating that atmosphere or environment for them to bring their own ideas to the table, it could potentially be a difficult journey working with someone if you're not giving them the space to bring all their ideas.
What you're saying is you're that right. And while I was listening to you, I was thinking of an experience that I had at this specific point. I went into a company and I did a survey. I sent a survey to the different members of the finance organization, and I asked them, what do you do on a daily basis? And if you had a magic one, which activities would you try to stop doing right now? Because you know that it doesn't add value. You get frustration. And when you go home, you think that you wasted your time doing those type of activities. And the surprise I got is that almost 40% of what they were doing on average were things that they feel they should be doing.
Wow.
So having that information in mind, we came back to them and said, look, this is the responses that we are getting. And what we are proposing to you is to get rid of that 40%, because you come to work because you want to add value, you want to feel that you are useful and your intelligence fully utilized. So what we are proposing to you is to eliminate this. And in order to do this, we need your help. You need your wholeheartedly support to make this happen. And just by being able to combine logic with a little bit of emotions, it worked very well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. I think people do feel empowered if they are given the opportunity to bring their own ideas. You don't know what's going to be brought to the table, and it's a fantastic way to leverage the team as well, or the frontline users or employees, leveraging their minds and their creative ideas and suggestions as opposed to bottlenecking it just to the process professionals, because you're not the ones in that position day in and day out.
That is correct, and they know the in and outs of the process, and if we want their support and tap into that invaluable amount of information that they have to be brought on. They need to understand why they are doing and what's in it for them. If they can appreciate that, many things can happen. Good things, right. Of course.
That's right. That's right. And you were mentioning before about automation, RPA, these different topics. When you look at the current trends that are happening in the process transformation space, so when you think about the next 2, 3, 5 years, what do you see happening for process transformation in general? Obviously, there's a lot of technology coming up. We've got process mining, robotic process automation. We've got all of these different technologies that and tools that organizations are making use of. But what are you noticing? And if you look 3 to 5 years into the future, what do you think how do you think process transformation is going to evolve?
I think one word: convergence. I am saying a convergence of technology, and let me explain why. Let's go back in time around the 80s. Okay, during those years, a lot of software solutions were coming to the market. You had one solution for sales, another one for accounting, another one for payroll, and so forth. During the end of the 80s and 90s, as this solution became too complex because too many systems, somebody invented ERP solutions. They said, okay, you don't have to have a lot of systems. You're going to have one, and we can take care of everything. And that was a breakthrough in the marketplace. As you pointed out, at the moment, we have a lot of technologies, and each of them is provided by different software providers. So, but there is nothing similar to an ERP system. I am trying to make an analogy. So, what I think is it might happen in a few years. Software companies will try to come up with a product where you will be able to get most of the automation solutions that we have at the moment. Instead of having 5 or whatever number, maybe just one solution that provides everything, an ERP for automation, something like that.
Yeah, right. No, that's great. And do you think, is that something that, because I know that when organizations see technology, new technology, oftentimes they're observing what their competitors are doing. Do you see that sometimes organizations maybe are jumping to technology quicker than maybe they should? When I say that, I'm talking about they don't have the fundamentals in place. They don't have proper process ownership. They don't have any governance structure in place. They don't even have a good baseline understanding of their processes. Are there a few sort of fundamental things that organizations need to put in place right now to prepare them for the future?
Prepare for automation, do you mean?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. As one example.
Yeah, before you start thinking of any automation tool, number one, as you said correctly, the fundamentals have to be in place. For me, the fundamentals is to have a good ERP system, having processes well documented and streamlined. And when you have that backbone in place, including the governance structure that you also pointed out, that's the moment when you are ready to start bringing the automation tools that we know about. At that point is when you can start thinking about RPA or workflow solutions, and then you can start thinking about artificial intelligence as well. If I stop for a moment, artificial intelligence doesn't work if you don't have good data. And to have good data, you have to have a good ERP system. So that's the order I see in the automation evolution.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And now for our listeners that maybe you've piqued an interest there or maybe an urgency that we need to get on top of our finance processes. We need to look into how we're currently doing things, and because there's a world of opportunity there for doing things better and for delivering significant value from that to the organization. Where should the listeners go to learn more about process transformation, specifically when it comes to finances? What I personally do is I use an application that is called Fitly. Fitly, it's an application that basically goes to everywhere in the internet, scrapes the internet. And the beauty of this technology is that it has artificial intelligence. So what this means is that if let's say I type as keyword BPM, and this software starts to give me information about BPM, and if I like the articles I say I like, the software learns about my preferences, and over time you start to receive
information that is exactly what you are looking for. If you are in a specific industry, you can say BPM, pharmaceuticals or medical devices. So you create a string of keywords, and the system over time learns your preferences, and you can be up to date about what's going on.
That's great. Is that FIDDLY?
Yes.
Fiddly. Yep. Fantastic. That's great. I think there's, a lot of information out there that specialists and professionals can glean from. And I think one of the best forms is to learn and glean from those that are further along the journey than you are, or they are. So, Eduardo, I just want to thank you for sitting down with us today, because I've certainly been able to glean a lot from this conversation, and I know that our audience will have been able to glean a lot as well, particularly when it comes to financial transformation. If any of the listeners do have further questions for you, how are they best to get in touch with you?
I can be contacted through my LinkedIn profile. I see my invites, and yes, I would be happy to help if somebody has further questions.
Fantastic. Thanks, Eduardo. It's been an absolute pleasure.
The same here. Have a good day.